Hello there, viewer. Today I will share some of my thoughts about one of the more challenging aspects of the game, which is playing main battle tanks when you're not the most fearsome beast on the battlefield. I'll show you 3 bits of gameplay where the matchmaking is less than ideal, and hope to give you some tools to improve your own gameplay in this area. So, while the main battle tanks for sure are considered the strongest class, they also tend to be the ones that suffer the most when they run into their higher tier counterparts. And I feel you really need to adjust your playstyle accordingly. While some main battle tanks are excellent bullies when they are top tier, you really need to adjust your tactics, since the same stuff doesn't work when people you run into can just punch through your face. T-90MS that I'm driving in this clip is a good example, I think. When you are top tier, you're a very effective bully, but when you're up against tier 10s, you need to be much more careful as you run out of hit points very fast and your armor isn't that good anymore. That being said, you're still by no means a weak tank, and you can definitely make the tier 10s pay for underestimating you. So like a good little tanker, I've been paying attention to my minimap and I see the enemy tier 10s grossly overextend, and I go for the aggressive flank. I want to minimize the damage they can do and make sure they cannot escape. Every second wasted increases the chances of them getting support or improving their position. A top tier main battle tank can do game winning damage even if they are effectively already dead. Being decisive about the kill can save your team thousands of hit points. The Armata never had a chance to recover from his mistake, and this Leopard is still clearly in a panic mode, and I want to keep it that way. He's still looking for an escape, but when he realizes we're one-on-one, he decides to try to fight me. He tries to wiggle, but I keep my aim and let him move into my shot for an easy penetration. He doesn't have much of a trouble penetrating me back, but after that he tries to look for an escape again, which means he shows me his side and dies. Instead of hoping for impossible escape, he should have just focused on keeping me occupied as long as possible. The odds are he would have done much more damage like that as well. So that's 2 tier 10s down with reasonably little effort, but the fight can still go either way. My next move is to start looking for a flank on the tanks on my left, but I run into a wild leopard on the road. Since I have a friendly tank coming up behind me, I want to move past this guy fast, so at least one of us can get easy side shots. But that plan kinda goes out the window as soon as the tier 10 appears on the corner. I'm forced to use this enemy as a cover instead, so I don't get wrecked by 2 tanks. I'm forced to use my repair kit to deny the shot the tier 10 was about to take, and I want to keep the distance short to protect my lower front plate from hits. The 2A6 is an easy kill after he gets tracked, but the 2A7 times his shot right and penetrates me, almost finishing me off in return. I know the wreck doesn't offer much actual cover, but I did try to use it regardless. My return shot luckily jumps his turret, so he has to try to ram me, but I managed to back just in time so that I don't take any damage. My backup arrives just in time for us to turn around to face the new threat. The Leo2A6 does the right thing by reversing towards us so he doesn't block our shots anymore. But in hindsight I should have reversed into a better position, because from here I have no exit with these hit points. My round is about to end and I know it, but I still should have tried to make it harder for them. Smoking here gives me enough time to reload my gun for the one last shot. And I find a pretty easy pen on the side of the Leopard. But still, once the enemies move past the smoke cover, they don't have much trouble disposing of me. Still, I'm reasonably happy with my own performance here, and by the time I died, the round was effectively already over. Looking at the scoreboard, I only lost to a Sphinx in damage, and most of the damage I did was done to tier 10s. Okay, this next clip is more of an example on how to collapse a flank by positioning instead of doing a lot of damage. It's early on in the round, and our forces here are quite even, so a frontal fight might take a while. Our biggest problem is that we have a hole in our line in the middle, so we are quite vulnerable to being flanked by fast movers. This Armata in front of me has given up some of his hit points early on, and he's quite isolated from his team members. I see his attention is elsewhere, so I smoke up to avoid taking shots from his friends, and I move up aggressively. When he finally notices me, I let him aim for a second and turn my front armor and bounce his shot. After that I move around him and use my body to restrict his movement while my team members put in damage. The odds of me penetrating him frontally from this angle are pretty close to 0, but it doesn't really matter. All I need to do is keep him here, and even if he were to penetrate every shot, it's worth it as long as he falls, because he is the key to making this flank collapse. At this point he has no good choices left. Once he's down, I quickly move up to capitalize on the empty space created. faster I move, the less time the enemy has to adapt to the changing situation. And as you can see, the enemy Sphinx wasn't too far off from collapsing this flank the other way. Had he been slightly faster, or if we had not forced the situation, this could have easily been a loss for us. The enemy PL seems to be under the impression that he's actually a main battle tank, which doesn't work out too well for him. And once he's gone, the second Armata is facing the same choice the one before him did. Who gets the kill shot? Obviously, if the blue tanks hadn't been paying attention, it would have been a really short round for me. Still, the risk is sometimes worth taking when you're not the top tier MBT and are playing something more expendable. Oh, I know what you're thinking. But Darok, T-90MS is still a really strong tank and only one tier down from tier 10s. So let's take a look at something that's a little bit closer to a worst case scenario. Okay, worst case scenario is maybe a little bit strong way of putting it, but still, this is probably something that would make most people at least side deep. Maybe even facepalm a little bit, and you know, some of the worst of you would probably go and post on the forums how broken the game is. Instead of getting all emo and sad about the matchmaking like this, you should try to grasp the freedom and joy of playing the bottom tier tank. You have zero responsibility, no one expects anything of you, so you can do anything, go anywhere. So basically this opens up all kinds of high risk, high reward, all-in strategies that are not usually very viable when you're playing something that, you know, must perform or the game is lost. Oh yeah, and Cold Strike is still horribly one-sided map that should be fixed. So we have that working out for us here. So here I'm driving with my trusty sidekick Perza, and our game plan is to rush the middle hill and basically draw as much attention and make as much noise as we can and hope as many people as possible turn to face us. And if they don't turn to face us, then we can shoot their sides when they're fighting someone else. So the biggest moment of danger is right here when we cross these two intersections, because if they're fast enough to move up here, then we probably just get wrecked right away. But if we actually get up here, then we are suddenly much harder to deal with, and there are no real good counters assuming our team keeps pressure in city and in the open side. Like I said, our main purpose here is not to kill everyone and deal damage. We're mainly here to attract attention and turn people away from the main forces. But from a strong position like this we can actually fight back, unlike on the open ground where we would be just food for everyone else. The biggest danger we actually face while we're here is the BMP on the other side of the map in the open, because he could actually just rain missiles down upon us and there's basically no cover and Leo can't take the hits. But most people really don't have that kind of map awareness. If the red team was on the ball, our game could be already over. Like you see here, there's not much we can do to counter the missiles from the BMP. Our only hope is that he can't keep it up for long. Our team is actually losing the fight in the city, but we have a very strong presence in the outside. The downside is that they haven't been aggressive enough, and the game becomes significantly harder for them if they allow all the city tanks to die. Our position here is quite all in, since there is nowhere to actually go, nowhere to retreat. We must pretty much just focus on selling our hit points for as expensive as possible and hope that the team can deliver. I've been working on the edge of my gun depression and actually have managed to do quite a bit of damage to this Challenger 1, who should have been a really crucial tank in fighting in the city. Being able to minimize his impact on the city fight has been a reasonable contribution, but I'm not sure if it's enough at this point. The riverside part of our team is finally moving up, but the enemy is also getting reinforcements, and these guys can actually put some fire down on us. And again, thanks to the nature of our positions, there's only so much we can do about it. Them not really paying attention to us, together with the elevated hull down position we're in, enables us to actually fight back much better than we could anywhere else. On a side note, the MBT weak spots become much easier to hit when you're even slightly elevated above them. Seeing as how 4 enemy tanks have a line of sight on me right now, I put up a smoke wall in order to avoid as many shots as possible. I doubt I'll need those smokes anywhere else this late in the game. Pertsa actually manages to climb up despite being exposed to several enemy tanks, but proceeds into losing to a Stingray in a frontal fight with a Leo 2. I'm not saying he's bad, but you know, just pointing it out. Rest of the match is pretty much just cleaning up. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that when you're top tier, especially if there aren't many of you, you are expected to carry, so you probably shouldn't make huge all-in moves, take huge risks, but play aggressive but kind of safe still. Take space, bully people, impose your will upon the weaker tanks, you know, all that going on the barbarian stuff. When you're not top tier, you can and should actually take bigger risks. And like here as a bottom tier, we took a risk to get in a position that gave us a chance to have a much higher impact than our tanks would normally justify. Obviously not every game is winnable or carryable really, but you should look for ways to maximize your impact even when you're not the most powerful tank on the field. Just make sure not to trick yourself into doing high risk low reward or high risk no reward plays. Those don't usually work out very well. But yeah, it turns out that Leo2A5's driver's hatch is pretty red for this.
So what you're looking for is balance.
So I hope you got something out of this. If there's any tanks you'd like to see or any other ideas, just drop a comment below. And thanks for watching.